You know where you are!
This is Appetite for Distortion.
Welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, episode number 490. My name is Brando. Welcome to the podcast from Destruction. Schmier, how are you, sir?
I'm good.
Am
You
I
said it
saying
right.
I did say it right?
Because many Americans say Schmier, because it reads like this, but it's Schmier. Yeah. It's basically like, the smear test, for women.
Oh, I was going to say like a pap schmear. I was going to say because I'm a New York Jew, so I'm used to like smearing butter on a bagel. You put a little
See,
schmear on
exactly.
there.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. That's how my nickname came up. I was the messy guy in my youth when I was a teenager, so.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's okay. I was going to ask that, but I'm glad that came up organically. Beautiful, and what a history, not just of the name, but of the band. Last year was the 40th anniversary of the band. I mean, and now you're just we're in the 41st year, and we're
Actually, it's difficult to say because
okay.
we founded in 82. First release was 83, the demo. The first album was 84, Sentence of Death. So basically, it's a gray zone of 40 years now, like the foundation of the band. And we don't actually even know 100% because it's so wishy-washy. Back in the day, there was no real, people writing down the day when we found it. And we've been investigating about newspapers the first time we were in the newspaper and stuff. And then we were like, okay, it was somewhere in 82 that we started the band officially. And the demo came out 83. So basically now we're in the 42nd year now.
Okay.
Technically, but depends on how you count it. If it's the first release of the album, then it's 84. Then we're in the 40 years now. But I think the foundation of the band was 82.
Just incredible, and the fact that you're putting out your 16th studio album coming out in March, Birth of Malice. I mean, how do you keep what motivates you the most over 40 asterisk years, 41, 42, 43, whatever? What has kept you motivated to continue to make new music and not just, rest on your
laurels? We had our ups and downs, It's like life goes like that. You have your ups and downs, and when you almost lose something, then you appreciate it more. And once you're a musician for a while, it's so much dedication in there. There's so much effort you put. There's so much time that consumes your job that it's just more than a profession. It's like a life goal. It's a huge dedication. And sometimes people ask me, actually over my career, people kept on asking me like, what do you do after music? And now 42 years later, I'm still here. There's no after music plan, basically. Music, musicians usually play till they can't do it no more. And I hope we can do that too. So the motivation was always, music is the biggest love of my life, and can't stop.
What about the creativity to, again, not just go up and play and go out and play shows, but to make new music? Is it always like you have something to say, or like what is there, and like what are some of the themes that we're going to get from the new record?
I mean, I think the most important thing is that creative music should never be a routine. You've got to be excited about it. And when you have a bad day and you're trying to compose and there's nothing good coming out, just quit. Sit down and write when you're inspired. And I think we had some years where it was more difficult to write because, writing is also a process of good mood in between the band members, chemistry, good live shows, fans that motivate you. All this comes together, and then you sit down and you're inspired, And at the moment, we have a great chemistry. We had a lot of great shows together in the last 2 years for the anniversary tour. So it was very inspiring to sit down and write this album actually right now. But of course, it's not always like this. You know, you don't write your best album every time, but the creation process is always fantastic because you're creating something new. It's exciting.
What about, because there are, having kind of like a classic rock adjacent podcast talking. I mean, I talk to new artists, classic artists, people who've been around longer than you even, have like I've had Paul Rogers on and
Wow.
uh you just but your voice, because everyone's voice is different. It's one thing if you're an older musician or a guitarist or, like a drummer, but to be a vocalist and
Yeah, it's
especially be
challenging. Yeah.
your kind of style, has that been a challenge for you with your style? Do you prepare your voice? Is there some sort of scales you do in your kind of
I mean,
style and screaming and thrash?
I know how to take care of my voice nowadays much better. You know, when you were young, you didn't give a fuck. It just came out. But actually, when I was young, I kind of lost my voice a couple of times. There was actually one American tour, the Chromax. We toured like 2.5 months. And once we hit like upstate New York, I lost my voice. It was gone. I had to take a huge penicillin shot at the doctor. But this actually never happened to me again in the last 20 years because I take better care. You know, the good thing about when you grow older with music is you learn from the mistakes, you learn from the past, and yeah, I live more healthy nowadays. And for me, I have to be functional on stage, so my whole routine is about being fit for the show. So I try to eat healthy, do some sports, you know, not dehydrate. Those things are super important. And of course, also you know how to control your voice better when you get older. You know, I sing a little bit different than I used to sing, a little deeper here and there. Just the range is still there, but I I just have more voice control, and I think that comes with the experience of I don't know how many live shows we played, but it must be like more than 1,000 something, you know. So I think that's the good thing about growing older with music.
Is there a singer, whether it's kind of in your genre or not, that you look up to and admire and being like, I like how they've been able to perform throughout their career? I kind of, I don't know about modeling after, but just be like, I'm inspired by the way this person handles their voice and their presentation of their career. Is there any, or a few people like that
Yeah,
you look
there's
at?
of course a few people like that. I mean, when I was young, I looked up to Rob Halford, you know, and I'm a huge Priest fan still, and I saw them live on the last tour. And Rob is more than 72, I think now, and he still performs fantastic for his age. So I have a lot of respect for that. Also, you should be a big fan of Lemmy, you know, because he was the first one with the scratchy vocals, with the extreme vocals in rock and roll, basically in the early 80s. First time I heard Motorhead, life changing. And from the thrash point of view, of course, I always loved Tom Araya's voice, you know, because he was the first guy who did this perfect phrasing, the thrash phrasing, a lot of fast words going together into cool phrases that I think those three guys were super important. And of course, there's more, but I think Rob Halford, from all of them, he kind of, for his age, he does like the most outstanding job. Also, if you look at the last Priest, the hook lines he wrote, I think that's a big gift. If you can write good hook lines, it's not just about singing good. It's also about how good can you write, especially when you get older. There's a lot of good examples for bands when they grow older. They don't write so good anymore. The songs get a little bit more like slower and more boring and, more bluesy, most of them, but not Halford. He managed in the last two albums to write so many amazing melodies and hook lines. That's wow.
Yeah, he's one of the gold standards, and I'm lucky enough to have also have had Rob on the show. And you mentioned like a phrase, and I'm always curious because you know how we throw out labels, especially in the metal and rock community. I mean, you're one of the forefathers of German, thrash metal and black metal, and do you like these phrases, or what do you consider yourself to
I
be,
mean,
destruction to be?
I'm of course a metalhead first of all, but of course we're a thrash band, and when we started the band, the word thrash wasn't born. You know, the phrase came somewhere from England, 85 was all the first time. After Metallica used it, I think on Whiplash, you know, thrashing like a maniac. I think it was the
Hmm.
first time we heard the word thrash, and later on, a guy from Kerrang or so picked it up and called this is thrash metal. You know, so we were like, oh, okay. So, I mean, I'm totally okay with the term thrash. You know, and I understand people need to put categories on music, need to put stamps. You know, so but I see myself as a lover of rock music. I'm a metalhead, and of course, I'm a thrasher to the bone with my band.
Thrasher to the Bone. That's a good name for a song, for maybe perhaps
Oh, all right.
the
I,
next album. I like that. Or a
good.
tattoo or a t-shirt or something. I just like that
Actually, yeah, good. That's totally true.
I like
I
that
gotta write
phrase.
that down then for the next album.
And before I lose it, because you mentioned Lemmy as an inspiration, but you've toured with Motorhead back in the day, right?
Oh yeah, actually, a
Any
lot of shows. Yeah, in their prime.
I mean, you don't have to go too personal. I know what stays behind, closed doors stays there. But is there like a funny or maybe even an inspirational Lemmy story, or you learned something from him on the road? Perhaps something that sticks out to you all these years later.
I mean, he was always super friendly, and he was in his own world. You know, he was playing at his one-arm bandit, having Jack and Coke in the morning. You know,
Right.
while we're having breakfast, hangover breakfast, eggs and beans. You know, next door, Lemmy was at the bandit, like, "Cheers, guys!" You know, we're like, he's drinking again. You know, and his bandmates at the time was Versal and Phil Campbell, the guitar players, and they came always to our bus to smoke weed, you know, and because Lemmy was drinking all the time, and they were like, "We cannot drink with Lemmy. He's drinking all the time. He's partying all the time. Let's smoke some weed together." And
Yeah.
but Lemmy was always taking care about the bands, you know. When sometimes he just knocked at the door like, "You need something to drink?" And he put a case of beer on a table, or the tour manager brings us a bottle of Jack Daniels, like, here from Lemmy, and we were like, "Wow." Or I remember one time in France, we met him on a tour break in like an expensive bar in Marseille. And all of a sudden, Lemmy was sitting there. We're like, "Oh, Lemmy's also here." And then he invited us for some drinks at the bar. We couldn't afford it because it was kind of an expensive place. And he gave us some drinks. And he was always like down to earth in his own world, though, you know, but really friendly and really like English gentleman. You know, that's what we learned from this tours from Motorhead. Like, support bands, treat them well, you know, because Lemmy did, and it was the best thing that happened to us because it gave us so much more of experience and stuff that we kept on carrying on. You know, it's like it was an inspiration for us, basically.
I love that, and you love to hear that because you never know. Sometimes that phrase "never meet your heroes," but that's never the case with any story I've heard about Lemmy.
No,
Everyone's
no,
just
that was Lemmy. You know, Lem was always very cool. He was down to earth, and I mean, you know, also we always couldn't understand how he could drink so much and not be totally drunk. You know, like, but I mean, he
special
had
guy.
he had his drugs, you know, but still, it was. And he actually sometimes he played jazz against my drummer. You know, so he sat down and he started playing. He was actually really good. You know,
At Jack's,
no,
the
no jazz. You know,
oh jazz.
the board
Okay.
game. Yeah, jazz. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm not familiar with that. Because I thought you meant Jack's the game. Not is there a board game called Jazz?
How's it called? You know you know the what was it in English? I forgot. Yeah, I think it's isn't it called jazz.
Well, I have listeners in German. Somebody will tell me that like what it is. It's not like shoots and
Oh no,
ladders or
jazz. It's called jazz.
oh chess.
Chess. Yeah,
Chess.
I said it wrong. Chess. Yeah.
No, you said it beautifully. I'm that
No,
sounds
no,
like
but just it's my German accent, you know. So yeah, it's called chess. Yeah. So yeah, he played the board game against my drummer a couple of times, and he was winning all the time, you know. So even he was drunk and he was on all the drugs, he could still sit down and think and be there and be fully
checkmate.
smart. Yeah, he was one of a kind for sure.
Beautiful. No, I love that. And I'm sure just the way you come off, you're somebody who probably pays it forward. Are there any younger bands whether they're thrash or not, that you're looking to now that kind of going to carry the torch the way that perhaps Lemmy looked at you back in the day, or what who are you looking at now who's going to help bring metal into the future?
I mean, we've been always trying to bring some of the younger bands with us on tour. Uh, we uh, we had Warbringer with us in America on tour. We had Spanish some Spanish thrashers with us on tour here in Europe, and Crysics. And we always try to bring some bands that are, the new shit, But yeah, because I know it's very difficult for a thrash band to tour. Thrash is not the taste of the month. It's more the underground, and
Mm.
for the young thrash bands, many of them tour relentless. They on tour all the time. They in their little van. They do tough touring schedules, and when we can bring young bands, it's always a pleasure. And it's inspiring for me because I also have to compete with the young fellows. And also I see myself how it was when I was at that age. So it's great to see that the torch is moving on. The young generation is there, because for a couple of years it didn't look so good for thrash. I remember end of 90s was difficult. Everybody was playing melodic death metal and black metal, and there was no thrash bands. But now there's a lot of young bands actually, and sometimes I just go on YouTube and check the young bands. I'm like, wow, so much good shit coming out. So it's just difficult to get signed for them, because the labels, they sign metalcore, and they sign pagan metal, and they sign what's the trend of the month. But for thrash band, it's harder to get signed.
Well, they're out there. We just gotta find them. We gotta look, and that's the beauty of we talk about the double-edged sword of social media and the internet,
Oh
but
yeah.
that's how you can get discovered now, and you never know what's to come, and it doesn't matter. Sometimes a label doesn't matter, but I want to keep I don't want to keep you here forever, but you may have noticed the theme. I have some posters in my backgrounds, and I know we talk about appetite for destruction. This is just we got the destruction here. We play like a 6 degrees of GNR bacon here. So other than having that word in common with the band, I mean, this came into my brain when Appetite for Destruction came out. Was there any part of you who were like,
Oh, actually, we were on tour with Motorhead,
mm-hmm,
and
what?
Phil Campbell from Motorhead came on our tour bus. Said, "We just toured with those guys in America. Check them out." And he played Guns N' Roses for them, the first album. It wasn't out in Europe yet, and I was like, "This sounds like Aerosmith." And at that time, nobody knew that band, and nobody knew they would ever make such a career. So I will always forget the first time I heard Guns N' Roses from Phil Campbell from Motorhead introducing them to me. And I was like, yeah, it sounds good, but it sounds like Aerosmith. It's nothing new, because it's basically was the repeating of rock and roll, but in a fantastic way. And Appetite for Destruction is an album that has no fillers, just killers, right? It's like what a songwriting monster this album is in the end now, 20 something, 29 years later, no more than that, 30 something years later. Huh?
Well, it's gonna be the band. This is what's cool. It just goes to show you how time fast goes. The band is going to be celebrating their 40th year because they started in 1985, but the record didn't come out until 87. So that
87, yeah. But in
yeah,
Europe, it came out 88, actually.
yeah. Well, it took like a year for it to blow up, and they
Yeah, 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 yeah.
actually
I remember
they
that in Europe it was really slow, and they were already starting to get big in America before Europe recognized it. Yeah.
the UK. The story I've heard is that they blew up because all because of Alan Niven, who's from more familiar with that area. The old Great White manager and managed GNR at the beginning. They had to go to the UK first to get big there, then come back to America. It wasn't like it was a slow build
So they were
for
big
them.
in the UK first before they were big in America.
That's the way the legend goes.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's like the Scorpions. They were big in Japan first before they went big in Germany. And then they went to America, did the big tours, and then they came back, and then they were huge in Germany because, yeah.
And them, I mean, I know they had to put it on pause because Mickey D,
Yeah.
yeah, Mickey, he's having some health issues, but 60 years for that band.
And they're doing their final tour since 10 years already. So
Right? I was like, didn't they do this
it's like
already?
the final tour started, and they're like, oh, we don't want to stop. Fuck this, So it's
As
great
long
to see. I love to see that, those bands, they don't have to play anymore, but they can't stop because it's the dedication for music, the love for music is just too big. I don't think they would need the money to still play. They can't stop because I always say, what should they do? Gardening after after all, I mean, nothing against gardening though, but
Yeah.
but
Well,
right,
I'm sure you relate. You probably see that and you'd be like,
yeah.
I'm like, I could do that for 60 years. So
I mean, as long as your health, the traveling and the challenge, and it's nice to see the world. You become a different person when you travel a lot. So I I saw that when COVID hit and we had to sit home for almost 2 years. It was a difficult time for a musician.
yeah.
So you appreciate. I think what that you appreciate to tour. Unless you get old and you don't want to be on the road anymore, that happens too, I guess. But I think being on the road is a big gift, seeing all the countries and the cultures, and that is fantastic, of course.
What are the tour plans for Destruction?
We're actually coming to America for some shows around the Milwaukee Metal Fest. We will play a handful of shows, selected shows around the Metal Fest, and then we're gonna come back to Europe for the festivals and tour Europe in autumn. And then the plan is to come back for an American tour end of the year or early next year. So we see how all that goes. We don't know if we're going to get the visas with the new administration.
Oh no. Oh no. That's well, good luck. Good luck.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we're hopeful still.
Well, assuming, I mean, I can't wait. I'm sure it'll work out, but just congratulations, Schmier. 41, 42 years. Keep going. Break the Scorpions record. And I hope we get to do this again.
Thank you very much. Hopefully see you in New York. Where we're definitely going to play in New York in May. So
You know what? Here's a little question because I usually, before we get out of here, I ask because I have my son. He'll be 2 in April, and we're just starting to take him to concerts. I mean, unfortunately, my wife has only taken him to Dave Matthews. I'm not a Dave
it's
Matthews
a
fan,
little bit early for real death metal shows and stuff,
so
right?
that's what I was going to ask. I mean, he has headphones, so I mean, I don't know if do you have kids? When's the first time you took them to a death metal show? Like when you
I have no kids, but my
okay,
brother has kids, and he brought his son with headphones to our big festival appearance at the Summer Breeze Festival in Germany when he was also 2 years old.
okay.
So I remember that, and now he came again. Now he's like 8 or so, and he came again, and he wanted to have a shirt and everything. And he was totally into it, but he didn't remember much from his first show. I think he was
I
too
don't know,
little.
but I don't know if he likes it again at 8 years old. Maybe it got into his system, his blood. So that's good
It's never too
advice.
early, right? It's never too early.
Never too early. All right.
Just wear ear protection. That's important.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, he's already got that. Even for Dave Matthews, which is like listening to a mouse play a guitar. It's
But
very
but learning how important live music is a great thing. I think going to concerts and appreciating musicians playing real music live. That's
yeah. That's something
never too early to learn that.
oh yeah, that's something I can't wait. For the summer shows and whatever. It's another conversation for another time. I have him. Sometimes he's here as my co-host. He can say words here and there, but I can't wait to start taking him to shows and do concert reviews. I'm getting ahead of myself. Anyway, Schmier, thank you for
All
your
right.
time. And again, I hope we get to do this again.
Thank you. Pleasure. Big pleasure. Great talk.
Here's the mail, it never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes, I want to wail.
Mr. Mailstone. Haven't done this segment in a bit. I love this segment because I get to play a Blues Clues sound bites and also get to talk to you. So this is if you sent me a DM on any of the social medias, email theafdshow@gmail.com. Sometimes it's a comment that catches my eyes, but these are the ones I'm going to read right now are all from Instagram. So if you're not following me there, I encourage you to do so. Because as I always say, the conversation continues in between the broadcasts. So this is how it continues. And now I'm bringing it to the broadcast. So, first one This is from Craig. Hello, I just found your podcast about a month or so ago, and I've been going through and listening to all the direct related guns interviews, such as Gilby and Teddy and Roberta. I'm enjoying hearing stories from them. I was an Appetite for Destruction era guy. I remember seeing the video of Jungle on MTV in late '87. At first, I was like, "What the crap is that?" LOL. Axel with the teased hair, Slash, you couldn't see his face, and I thought, "Nope, not for me." Then I heard Sweet Child on the radio and I liked the song, but I didn't know who it was until they said it was the new song from Guns N' Roses. I was like, wait a minute. There's no way it could be the same band from the video. So I was intrigued. I went to Kmart and bought the Appetite on cassette and didn't stop listening to that album for the longest time. My father had passed in May of '88, so being an angry kid, Guns became what you might call an outlet for me. I was a super fan, so I told him, thanks for reaching out, and I appreciate the story. And I'm going to say the same thing here, which I just did. I do appreciate that story because that's something I can't experience. I don't know what it was like when Guns N' Roses came out. I was way too young. I was, I was born in '83, so I was, I mean, I was four. I don't think my parents were playing me Guns N' Roses when I was four. I know my wife and I try to play a lot of rock and roll for Baby Brownstone, but none of that's really sticking right now. He loves listening to the ABCs. So unless Guns N' Roses comes out with an ABC, an alphabet cover, I don't know if he's going to really appreciate Guns N' Roses for quite a bit. So I like hearing stories from those of you who were around at that time, and it's interesting. They're like, oh, Jungle, what is this? And Sweet Child, which is what really broke the band. It's been documented. It was Alan Niven's decision to, get that video made. And when Jungle wasn't, we all know the story. It was a 2 a.m. Time slot that Tom Zutaut begged for. And, it was just like a lot of different behind the scenes, other people that were not just from the band themselves. As my phone just drops off the desk, that's fine. I'll pretend it's live radio, so I'm not going to edit that out. So it's just we all know the stories, but just to hear it from you, a fan just like me who's a little bit older, very very cool. And I know it's a long time ago, but I'm sorry about your dad. As I'm recording this, it's my dad's. Yesterday would have been my dad's birthday. I think he would have been 71. It's just crazy, which is still young. So it never goes away. I'm sure it hasn't gone away from you, for you, Craig. So I appreciate that story, and I'm glad that you found us. I mean, look at this. I say this all the time that no matter how many years this podcast has been going, for the many years Axel and Slash have been reunited, still getting new messages, just like from Craig, who discovered the podcast. So actually, let's read another one. Somebody who just found it last year. He found it. This is from Anthony. Hey, I found your show September uh, because of the interview with Aaron North. Aaron North, of course, former Nine Inch Nails. I just wanted to say that your interview was gold. Not only that, you have a manner and approach that is rare and deeply human. That was really cool. I've never witnessed someone actually listening, bringing positive energy, and asking laser sharp questions, and just building information and understanding. You're a great interviewer on a Terry Gross level, and I'm glad I found your show. Not even a GNR fan historically, but maybe I'm about to be. Keep up the great work. Sorry to hear about how you got railroaded on that book you discussed with Aaron. Looking forward to enjoying your work for years to come in any form. I'm telling you, this message, I mean, just like Craig's, this meant a lot to me. Just was on kind of not expecting it out of nowhere. Because I love all the positive messages I get from you, the loyal listener, but from people who just find me, and I'm very real, so I'm not going to pretend that I'm embarrassed that I should have known who Terry Gross was. I'm just not an NPR listener. I'm a sports radio listener. It has nothing to do with the politics or anything like that. I mean, I have listened to NPR. I've worked on conservative radio. It's just kind of you work where you work, or you listen to what's on the radio sometimes, and just I love because I love radio and I like how to hear people approach it, sometimes regardless of the format. So looking her up, I mean, that's quite the compliment. Your compliment was so intelligent, I didn't even understand it. So I guess that goes to your point of deeply human and rare, because in today more than ever, because I was telling my wife yesterday, I remember. I understand, like, I think because I'm, 41, born in 83, I'm technically a millennial. I refuse that label because I'm like the border of Gen X and millennial, because I remember what it's like not to have computers, what it's like not to have cell phones. But when you're growing up and people on the radio, like the Howard Sterns and the Shock Jocks, and now and people on TikTok and yeah, it's broadened the horizon, so you see all sorts of personalities, but it's so much of just like, listen to me. I know everything. Listen to me, my voice. I got it all figured out. I don't have it figured out, and I got to be honest with that. My insecurities I've tried to hide for the longest time to try to better my life, to especially when it came to girls, to finding a girl. Now I just let it ride. I'm like, these are my insecurities. I'm in a good place in my life, so I really don't care. I don't let them overtake me the way they used to. So that's, I assume, is the deeply human part you're talking about. I try to bring, and yeah, I want to listen because I I mentioned Howard Stern. He doesn't listen. It's like he answers for his guests. He's such an overrated interviewer. I mean, he's obviously a legend in radio, and I have respect for him and to a degree. But you watch his interviews now. He just like tells somebody the story and expects them to kind of just piggyback off it. Just like let them talk. My issue is, which I admit, no one said this to me, but I admit, is that I feel like my setups are too long. But sometimes I feel it requires it. Like the context needs to be set in a certain way for certain conversations, and the guest isn't going to do that. I got to do that. So, anyway, laser sharp questions. I am flattered. I don't really. I used to write out questions. Now it's all in my brain because I will get distracted if I'm reading stuff on a page. I'll even get distracted if I'm just looking through notes. I gotta be in the conversation. I have to be. Otherwise, I'm gonna lose it. I'm gonna sound like an idiot. I'm gonna be. If you remember that scene from Wayne's World 2, with Harry Shearer when he was Handsome Dan, and they were promoting, what was it, a Wayne stock, and he's like, yeah, and he's putting all the tape decks away. He's like, you're not even listening to anything I say. I could say you're a freak with a microphone. And he's like, yeah, okay, yeah. So I don't want to be that guy. So anyway, and with the book, I'll get into more of that later on with the proper guest as we approach 500. I'll tease it with that. But given where I am now in life, it happened for the best. It did. I learned a lot. It just really turned me off from ever wanting to be, to reach a certain level where there's just too many cooks in the kitchen who just want something else out of it, quick buck, whose opinion is garbage. I mean, it's what happens with bands, movies. I'm just not good in that role. I don't like people with egos. I don't like being fake. And this is less about Doug than it's more about it's more about the guy at the marketing company that just kind of, I felt, fed me a load of bullshit. Oh, I want you to send me something that I can approve and let's go forward. I really want you to send me that, but I'm just not seeing it. Fuck you, dude. Just stop. I'll never forget. I reading his one of his approved books, so the Lita Ford autobiography, in one entire paragraph. Every sentence started with the word I. You learn that shit in high school. You don't have back to back sentences rarely start with the same word, just let alone an entire paragraph. So stop. Stop. He just wanted somebody who can get him a quick buck. Anyway, I digress. So anyway, thank you, Alan. Excuse me. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Anthony. Uh, that yeah, for many years to come in any form. So just continue. As you can see, I'm focusing more on the video form than the audio form. I mean, of course, the audio podcasts are still coming out, but just focusing a lot on social media and YouTube. And yeah, welcome aboard, my man. And this one I thought was really cool. And I don't think I would have mispronounced your name, but I apologize if I do. Rustum. Okay, so he is from Bombay, India. Like, whoa. I'm a big fan of your podcast. I play music for special needs kids and adults. A lot of the songs I play are Guns N' Roses songs, especially Patience and Sweet Child of Mine. Good work. Keep up the good work. And he sent me a couple videos of one of his special needs students jamming out to Patience, and it was super sweet. It was super sweet. So I mean, that's just incredible. It shows a couple things there. This Rustum, you're a good person. I have one of my teacher friends teaches special needs, and I think maybe a couple of my friends do. And it's a special kind of person who does that. But it shows the power of music. It shows the power of this music, Guns N' Roses, and I guess maybe it shows the power of podcasting because you could just Rustum, you could just the entire world, Sweet Child of Mine, and to remember the lyrics. But the fact that you listen to this, and I've said this before, this English speaking podcast, and I am only assuming that English isn't your first language. If I'm wrong, forgive me. And that you listen and you get something out of it. I mean, that means a lot. So just thank you to Rustum, Craig, and Anthony. And I wouldn't be me if I didn't call at least one person out. This is just funny. So thank you for all the wonderful feedback I've been getting for the Todd Kearns interview, and just thank you to Todd for just one of my favorite guests, just like a super nice guy. You know, it's so hard. I just to do a short episode. I don't know if you've noticed. I've been trying to do shorter interviews, like maybe like half an hour, as opposed to like as I pull up my YouTube right now. Um, I because that's what YouTube prefers. I mean, I'm not Joe Rogan, so not many people want to watch a 3 hour interview. Not that I did many of those, but unless it's a major guest, I really try to keep it to a half an hour. I mean, Todd's a major guest, but I've had him on before. I'm like, let's do a half an hour. Easily did an hour, and I knew we were gonna go for a bit. We're gonna have a lot to talk about. I think we spoke for like 20 minutes before I even hit record, just to get it all out. So I mean, just a wonderful conversation, wonderful feedback. Except for this one person. There's always one guy, and it's unfucking believable. I gotta. I'm actually now I have to scroll through all the positive comments to get to this one negative one. It is okay right here from Keith on YouTube. Great interview until the cat discussion. Oh, sorry, Keith, that I wanted to talk about my cat that just died. That like was like my first son to me. You ass, you jackass. Uh, I mean, for real. I mean, I'm talking about. I'm not just saying like, hey, let me talk about cats by myself for like 10 minutes. It's what made Todd excited for the interview because he's a big cat guy as well. And to incorporate it within my theme, talking about Slash's cats, Axel's cats, to understand what it's like when you're on the road when you have cats, to make it part of just the grand discussion. And my cats have been part of the podcast as I've been doing this for so long, you know, starting out as a single guy, then all of a sudden I have cats in the background when I start doing this on Zoom during the pandemic, and they become part of the show. So it was a big deal. So, and it was at the end of this interview that was almost over an hour long that this person had a problem with it. This person, Keith. Like, there's always one. Like, you're such a loser. Who has a problem with that? Even if you're not a cat guy, that wasn't your favorite, to go out of your way and make that comment, you got to be a loser. You got to, like, in your life, there's something missing. And I hope you find whatever that is. It's like that same person, I still remember it, that thinks like I do stuff with Harrison, Baby Brownstone, for clicks. I do it because I love my son, and it's fun as hell to do this stuff with him. Like, I don't know. I mean, if people want like, oh, cute baby, click. Oh, cat, click. Cool. But I'm not shoving them on the camera like some parents do. And that's actually what I was talking about with my wife last night. I'm like, we could, man, if I like had the time, or if I was a bad parent and like sitting like editing TikTok videos because Harrison's so funny and like trying to do different things with him, but I'm like, no, I just let me just experience this live and live it. So God forbid if I hold him for a little bit of an episode. God forbid if I talk about my cat that just died for a few minutes at the end of an episode. God forbid. Jeez, like this. It's and then again this brings up because there's always one, and it's unfortunate because that's what sticks out, and it's not just for me. It's a lot. You hear this from celebrities, you hear this from people, and I'm fortunate enough to be in a place where I'm not letting it overtake me. I'm just flabbergasted that these are people that exist and are allowed to live adult lives. That there was a person who criticized Axel's like vocals, like calling him like a loser, all these things, like a has been. I always thought that term has been is kind of hilarious because that means you were successful, and a has been is just a term for somebody who's trying to put somebody who's successful down to make yourself feel better. That's all it was. Because you don't call somebody a has been unless you were a never was. And when you think about it, we're all something to somebody. So it's just people just have this a hate for celebrity, and it's just it's kind of sad. I mean, I find myself guilty of it at times. I mean, it was more so when I was younger, and really just you look at celebrities as like these untouchable things. And as I've been doing these interviews, it's just, I'm telling you, this podcast has really helped me mature in that kind of understanding of what it means to be. Not that I'm a celebrity, looking at talking to rock stars and seeing how human they are, and it doesn't matter how much money they are and how many people know who they are. It's we're all fucking human. We're all gonna die. We all feel things. So this person shitting on Axel, and I always find it funny when an adult writes like, and this is no, because we're all an adult. You could write LOL, that's fine. But when you're an adult that writes LOLs, come on, what are you doing? Like, why are you texting like you're a teenager? LOLs. So sometimes maybe I'm too. If you don't know my personality, the way I respond on social media could be you could be like, what? So I was just like, and it was this guy was commenting from his own music page. I didn't even listen to it. I'm like, better than your nothing music, LOLs. And I just put like a bunch of different letters after it that were just nonsensical, just to make fun of his LOLs. And the guy got so upset he called me a cripple. Can you believe that? This wasn't even a listener. This is somebody who I guess looked into it to find to see, and he's like, "Oh, this guy's handicapped. What's the worst word I can call him?" And I was like, "I'm just gonna leave this up here, so maybe your employer will get you fired." Good job. The guy eventually apologized to me privately, and just to end it, I was like, "Yeah, no worries." But just think about it. There are people who have problems with those are the things you would think that you wouldn't. There's a lot of things to make fun of me for or criticize me about, but you wouldn't think because of my disability, because of my child, or my dead cat. Yet people exist. Fucking crazy. I'm gonna read you one more to show you good people, and there are good people out there. This is from Lucas. Short but sweet. Hi, I would like to support you on Patreon, but it does not accept crypto. You accept Bitcoin donations. I haven't told my brother about this yet, who's probably gonna flip out because one of my brothers is so into Bitcoin, so into Bitcoin. Uh, I mean, maybe now if I get more, uh, suggestions like this, but it brings up the opportunity for me to bring up if you would like to support this page, if you would like to support this crippled father with a dead cat. Patreon. Just go on afdpod.com. There's a lot of different ways you could support. I actually just made it active on Facebook. You could subscribe, be a subscriber. I think it's like a small monthly donation just to help out. I'm working on doing that on Instagram as well, just to help out. There are things that I would like to invest into the podcast. I want a better webcam. I would like a microphone, like an extended microphone stand, not just like this this one kind of gets propped up. I would like one that moves, maybe just like a different mic, maybe like a headphone that can kind of move around a little bit, but a different camera to begin with. I guess I'm using my regular laptop camera, which is, I think, the best. So there are things I would like to invest back into the podcast when Harrison starts talking more. I don't know if you saw my tweet. He can officially, I mean, this is a big time in parenthood. He can say poo poos and pee pees. That's huge. So when he can start saying Axel and Slash, I mean, he's going to be my co-host a lot. I want to get a second microphone. I would love to get a second camera, maybe to look back at his play place when I'm over here. So there's a lot of things I would love to invest back into the podcast. But right now, all money I make goes into paying bills and whatever I can save for Harrison's future. Whatever I can scrape by to do that. So anyway, the best, though, support is just the messages I've been getting and being able to do this for years and interview my rock heroes, all because you've given me a platform. So thank you. That does it for this episode of Appetite for Distortion. We'll do more Mr. Mailstones in the future. Again, the conversation continues in between the broadcast. That's how you find out about future guests. That's how you can ask questions. You can maybe be a guest co-host if you're like, "Ooh, this person's my favorite. I really know a lot about this person, Brando. Like, what time are you doing this? Maybe I'm around. I can guest co-host." You could, yes, that's the thing that you can do. So just let me know. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, not X, whatever you want to call it. Follow on YouTube. Again, podcast. I mean, the new website is afdpod.com. So when we see the next episode, in the words of Axl Rose concerning Chinese democracy, I don't know if soon is the word, but you'll see it.
Thanks to the lame ass security, I'm going home.